Good morning everyone and welcome to our final episode of Azure Dan, the Cloud and Proud sessions. Now in our last episode we synchronized Active Directory and Azure AD, we used multi-factor authentication and used the Azure Authenticator on our Windows Mobile. We then evaluated role-based access control, we investigated application single sign-on and created a PaaS SQL instance. In our final session, we begin by exploring RemoteApp and using Office Applications to connect back to our PaaS SQL database that we created in our previous session. We will then focus on deploying a multi-cloud solution to our development virtual network and design startup and shutdown automation scripts for resource optimization. By the end of our session, we'll be able to configure and deploy a RemoteApp solution, build cloud services and IaaS instances using PowerShell automation scripts, and finally schedule start-stop VM solutions using automation. Now we'll need to download the demo scripts which I've uploaded to www.cloudandproud.info. By the end of our session we should have a Dev Server 1 and Dev Server 2 in multiple clouds on our development virtual network, and we should be using the RemoteApp Office Pro trial to allow us a front end that connects to our back end Azure SQL database. Let's get started. So let's begin our session today by creating a RemoteApp solution to connect back to the database that we created in the last session. Now I'm often asked why I love RemoteApp, and the honest answer is, in today's workforce we have to think that it's mobile and tech savvy and accesses information across a broad range of devices including personal ones virtually anywhere we have access to an internet connection. And if you think about it, this presents a huge challenge to IT. How do we enable remote productivity to any device while still maintaining security and compliance? The answer is Azure RemoteApp. It was designed specifically with this challenge in mind and combines Windows application experiences on top of a Windows remote desktop service, all powered by the Azure cloud. So let's jump into our original portal and begin setting this up. Okay, so from our original portal, let's just scroll down. And we can see that we've got RemoteApp. So I'm going to go ahead and click on RemoteApp. From here it says you have no RemoteApp collections. Create one to get started with a 30-day trial. Now this is what we're going to do. However, before I go ahead and create this, do bear in mind that we have the option to create our own template images. Okay, and we can see this. If I just quickly go down to New, under Compute, and go into Virtual Machine, from Gallery, we'll be able to see that we have server images with remote desktop session host available in our Azure portal. Now these will contain the scripts that allow us to create the template images once we've installed the applications that we want to share. Okay, so let's go back and let's go ahead and create a RemoteApp collection. So let's create a RemoteApp collection. We've got two options. We're going to do a quick create, or we can create and place it onto an existing VNet. So we've got two options. We've either got hybrid integration or we've got standalone cloud. Now we're going to choose standalone cloud for our demo. Okay, we're going to use Office Professional Plus 2013 30-day trial. I'm going to put my region into Central US and I'm going to call mine Cloud and Proud Wrap Demo. So Cloud and Proud RemoteApp Demo, and we're going to go ahead and create this RemoteApp collection. Now if you think about it, this has to build a server, it has to install all of the templates, so this will take about an hour to provision. So let's pause the video. When it's done, we'll come back and we'll start deploying this onto our clients and mobile devices. And we're back and we can see that our RemoteApp is now active. So if I go ahead and click on RemoteApp, From our initial splash page, you can see that we can publish remote app programs. So we can choose what remote app programs we want to publish and who we want to allow to have access. You'll also notice that we have a URL where we can connect up and download the client. So we're going to connect to our second computer in a minute. We're going to download the client and we're going to access some of these applications. But let's just go through and look at some of our tabs. So if I click on dashboard, this is going to show us our overall usage and the user's build. Now obviously there's nothing in there at the moment because we haven't set anything up. If I come across to user access, we're going to see the user accounts that are allowed access into this remote app service. So at the moment it's my Daniel at danielbaker.info. If I come across to publishing, we can see which applications are currently published for user access. So I've got Word, Visio, Project, PowerPoint, Outlook, Access, most of the Office applications. If I want to add more, I come down to Publish. You can see I can publish programs using a path or publish start menu programs. If I click on publish start menu programs, it's going to show me the applications that are present in this template and allow me to inject them into the service. So I can go down, select Media Player, Internet Explorer and things like that. If I come out of here, we move over to sessions. This is going to show me any active sessions that are currently running, so nothing at the moment. If we come across to scale, we can see what our current pricing plan is. So you can see we've got basic, standard, premium and premium plus. Now obviously the prices are on the Azure website, but do be aware the fact that you are buying 20 users at a time. Finally, we have a tab for support. So let's go into our application machine. Let's connect up and download the remote desktop client. Okay, so I've come down to my application machine. If I go ahead and go on to Internet Explorer, I've connected up to the remote app URL. And what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down and download the clients. Okay, so you can see for downloading the clients, we can download for Windows, for Apple devices, Android devices, and the Mac App Store. We're going to download for Windows. And we'll go ahead and install. Okay, so we'll just wait for that to download and we'll continue. And we're back. We can see we're now running the wizard. So welcome to Azure Remote App. Azure Remote App helps you use your work apps from your phone, tablet or computer. So we're going to try it on this Windows machine first and then we'll come across to our Windows mobile device and set it up on this too. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to need to do is authenticate. So just enter my credentials and it's a personal account and we'll just type in our password. Okay, from here we can see that we've got an invitation for our work resources. It's been invited by Daniel at danielbaker.info. And it gives us a warning. Only accept invitations from people you trust. If you're not sure about an invitation, check with your administrator. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on our work resources and done. Just minimize this now. And again, we can now see that we've got those remote app applications which are now being presented to our physical machine. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Excel. Okay, so I'm going to double click. It's going to start the remote app session. Now this will take a couple of moments for it to start up initially, but subsequent apps will launch very fast. Now while we're waiting for Excel to start, let's go back into the database that we created last week so we can look at the connection string. Okay, so let's go ahead and find the database. So under SQL databases, so in our last session we created the Cloud and Proud demo DB, and if I click on here, what I want to be able to connect to my database. So I'm going to take this server connection string and I'm going to copy this so that I can connect up from my remote app PC. Okay, so let's minimize this machine. We can see that Excel has now started, so let's go in and do a blank workbook. Okay, and from here what we want to do is we want to come over to data. We're then going to click on get external data. We're going to choose from other sources, and we're going to choose from an SQL server. From here I'm going to paste in that string. Okay, so our Cloud and Proud SQL Server database.windows.net 1433, and I want to use the following username and password. So I'm connecting up as the student, and I'm just going to put in my password. Okay, from here I'm going to say next. We're going to drop down and select our Cloud and Proud demo database. And from here, I'm just going to go ahead and select customer. Okay, so let's go next and finish and OK. And we can see that it's going to pull all of the information down from that SQL server. Okay, so think about what we're doing. We're using Remote App to present Excel to our machine. That version of Excel is connecting to our backend PaaS SQL database, and we're retrieving the data from it. Okay, so we've now tested Remote App on our desktop machine. What we're going to do now is test it on a mobile device. Okay, so let's go ahead and connect from my mobile device. So if I connect up to my remote desktop, okay, and we're going to add a new connection for Azure Remote App, and we're going to connect up. So we need to enter the email address. So Daniel at danielbaker.info. It's going to be a personal account. And let's go ahead and sign in. And you can see it's now finding our apps. And we can see that I've now got all of the apps connecting back to my remote app. So if I click on Excel, we can see it's configuring my remote session. And from here, if I just close that down, you can see that I've got access to all of the data that I was just using, and it signed me out of my desktop. So what this means is my data is portable and it follows me around no matter what device I'm using. Okay, so I think we're done with Remote App. We've set it up, we've seen it working, and we've used it across multiple platforms and devices. So what I think we want to do now is start looking at setting up some of this automation stuff. So I'm just going to go into my new portal. Okay, and what we're going to do now is we're going to start looking at our development network. So what we want to do is we want to build a couple of machines and a couple of cloud services on our development VNet. Now to do this, we're going to use automation. And if you cast your mind back to the beginning of this session, I said that you needed to download the scripts that I've appended to the Cloud and Proud website. So if you have downloaded them, if we could open those up in PowerShell. So we should have a build, a DevNet VM environment, a start a DevNet VM environment, and a stop a DevNet VM environment. Now we are going to have to tweak these, but we can do that together as we go through the session. Okay, so before we start looking at our scripts, let's go ahead and create an automation account. So I'm going back into my original portal, and I'm going to come down to automation, and I'm going to choose to create an automation account. Okay, so I'm going to choose to put my automation account in, I'm going to put it into South Central US. Now you'll notice we don't have as many regions for automation. So I'm going to point mine to South Central US, and I'm going to call this Cloud and Proud Auto. Okay, so let's go ahead. Oh, we're not going to call it Cloud and Proud Auto. Someone's already got that. Okay, so Cloud and Proud Automation. That one's fine. So Cloud and Proud Automation, and we'll go ahead and start creating that. Now that'll take a few moments to create. Then once we've done that, we can evaluate building some runbooks and putting in some variables. Okay, so we can see that that's now created. If I click on Cloud and Proud Automation, okay, you can see that under the initial splash page, okay, there's some options to get us started. So there's some documentation, some support forums, and there's some tools that we can download. If I click on the dashboard, we can see how much I've used over the past month. Now I get 500 minutes free. If I click on scale, I can move it up to a basic plan, which gives me a lot more compute power for processing my runbooks. Okay, we're going to come back and create runbooks in a moment, but before we do that, let's go ahead and create some assets. Now the idea behind assets is we can pre-populate certain fields when we're using our scripts. So if you think about it, if I'm creating a script and I want to make sure that I don't accidentally put in the wrong user credentials, I can pre-create that as an asset and then just add the asset into the script. Okay, to do this, if I come down to add settings, you can see that I can add a connection, a credential, a variable, or I can add a schedule. So I want to go ahead and add a credential. Okay, so it wants us to select the credential type, and we've got two options. It can be a certificate-based credential, or it can be a Windows PowerShell credential. So I'm going to choose a Windows PowerShell credential, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it PaaS credential. Okay, so I've already defined the variables in the script. We're going to call this PaaS credential for PowerShell credential, and then we're going to say next. And what we're going to do is we're going to add the account that we created in the previous session. So we're going to add the Azure AD account. Okay, so I've just pasted that in. Let's go ahead and enter the password. And we'll just confirm that password. And then we'll go ahead and accept that credential. Okay, and we can see that that was successfully created. Okay, now there's a couple of things that we're going to need to change in these scripts. Let's just go through and understand what these scripts are doing. So let's just expand this. If we look at our initial script, so the first one is going to build a DevNet VM. Okay, so the first thing it's going to do is get the automation credential that we've just created. Okay, so the PaaS credential. It's then going to define our subscription name. Now my subscription name is Visual Studio Enterprise with MSDN. So how do we find that? If we go into PowerShell, if we add Azure account, okay, and we're going to authenticate in, so I'm going to go Daniel at danielbaker.info, and it's going to be a personal account, and we just type in our password, and from there sign in. Okay, so we're just going to wait for that to authenticate. And from there, once it's authenticated, all I've done is I've put in get Azure subscription, and it has shown me my multiple subscriptions. Okay, so we'll just wait for this to update, and we can see that I've got an MSDN platform subscription and a Visual Studio Enterprise with MSDN. So I simply copied that name and I've pasted that into here. Okay, so let's clear up our screen and just pull that down a little. So we're happy with this. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add the Azure account. So we're taking our credential, we're taking our subscription name, so we're selecting the right subscription. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable name for a storage name and 2 cloud services. So I've chosen Cloud and Proud Dev Disk, and then Cloud and Proud Dev Cloud 1, Cloud and Proud Dev Cloud 2. Once we've picked these, we're going to write the output, which then tells us what our storage account and 2 cloud services are going to be. Now once that's done, what we're going to do is we're going to look in the Azure image repository and we're going to pull down the latest version of Windows Server 2016 Technical Preview. Once that's done, we're going to get it to write the output to tell us what image it's selected. Okay, so once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and define our variables again. So we're going to select our subscription name, we're going to choose an admin name, an admin password, a location, and this is the bit that we'll need to change. So under the network, mine's called Group Core Network Cloud and Proud DevNet, and my subnet is development. Now where are you going to get this information from? Let's go back into Internet Explorer, and from here, if I go into all items, okay, we're going to come down and you can see that we've got a virtual network. So there's my virtual network, Group Core Network, Cloud and Proud DevNet. And all I've done is I've simply taken that name and copied and pasted it into my script. Now for my subnet, we'll find that under Configure. So if I click on Configure, and we come down, you'll see that here's where my subnet is. Okay, so that's where we're finding the information for this. Once that's done, it's going to create a new storage account using our location and using the storage account name, so this variable here. From there, it's going to set the storage account and set our Azure subscription. Once we've done that, it's going to create 2 virtual machines. Now you'll notice that this is running in parallel because I've put them into separate clouds. So Cloud Service Name 1 and Cloud Service 2, these can run in parallel. So they should both build at the same time, and we should end up with one machine called DevNet Server 1 and one machine called DevNet Server 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that, and what we'll do is we'll import it into our automation account and we'll test. So let's go back into our automation account, and we're going to come across to Runbooks. Okay, so what we're now going to do is we're going to import this Runbook. So no Runbooks were found here, so what we can do is we can go ahead and create one. So I'm going to import one, but just bear in mind that I can go to New, and under Automation Runbook I have a whole bunch of Runbooks that I could import from the gallery. Okay, so there's a number of Runbooks in there that, there's tutorial ones in there, there's ones that set up dev and test environments and backup and patching and so on. We're going to go ahead though and we're going to import a Runbook. So I'm just going to make sure that this is saved and close down, and what we'll then do is import. We're going to browse for the file, which is on my desktop under scripts. So I've got my build DevNet VMs. So I'll select that and select open and then hit the tick. Okay, so what that's now going to do is import. It says the Runbook was imported successfully. So let's go OK. Okay, and let's just do a refresh. We'll just refresh that page. And we can now see that build DevNet VM is there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the Runbook. Okay, from the Runbook we can see that we've got again our splash page with some documentation. If we come across to the dashboard, we can see the jobs that have run in the past 30 days related to this Runbook. Any jobs information. We can go in and we can author the Runbook. Now you'll notice at the moment this is in draft form. Okay, so if we go down, we've got the workflow. It's exactly the same as what we've seen in our PowerShell. So everything should be fine here. Okay. We can go in and we can manage, we can insert variables, we can save, we can choose to publish, and we can test. Now, a bit of a bugbear for me. I would have normally assumed that if I was testing, this would test it as very much like a PowerShell what if. Unfortunately, that's not the case. If I hit test, it will go ahead and start trying to build the cloud services, the storage, and the virtual machine. So just bear that in mind. Okay, if we come across to schedule, once this has been published, we can then create schedules for the Runbook to get it to start at certain times or certain events. Before we go ahead and look at draft though, let's just go ahead to configure. What we can do here is we can go ahead, give it a description, add some tags, and choose whether or not we want login. So let's go back to author. And what we're going to do is we're going to run through and test this. Okay, so again, just to warn you, testing it doesn't mean it's going to say yes, this works. It's going to actually go ahead and run this. So do be careful when you start deploying these. Okay, but with that in mind, let's go ahead and say test. Are you sure that you want to save and test the Runbook? Okay, so let's say yes. You see it's saving the Runbook and it's starting to build the script. Okay, so let's dismiss this. And we'll just wait for this to start displaying. And again, this will take a little while. I'd imagine that this whole process will take between 10 and 15 minutes. But when it's done, if there's no errors in the script, we should have a couple of virtual machines that are up and running on our DevNet network. Okay, so a couple of minutes into this, let's take a look at what's going on. We can see that it's picked up our user ID. You can see that it's found our subscription. Again, we said that our outputs would be our storage account name. Our first cloud service will be called. Our second cloud service will be called. Again, bear in mind that you're going to need to change those variables in your script. Okay, we've then found a Windows 2016 technical preview image. Okay, and it's coming back with our details. Okay, we know it's going to be student. The password is going to be password123, located in central US. It's now going to go ahead and start building our machines. Okay, we've got a couple of warnings in there. Okay, we can see we've got new Azure Quick VM. We can see that the operation status is succeeded. So while we're waiting, let's just go ahead and click on this. And if we do a refresh, and just wait for this to come back, we should see that, look, we've got a couple of cloud services that have been created. We've got a new disk that's being created. Where's the disk? So a new storage account that's being created. And you can see that DevNet Server 1 and DevNet Server 2 are currently provisioning in parallel. So they're currently starting up. Okay, so if your script is correct, you should have something very similar. Okay guys, so I gave it another couple of minutes. We can now see everything is up and running, so the script has been a success. If we just want to test connectivity, let's just connect into DevNet Server 1. And if I go ahead to my dashboard, and let's just go ahead and connect. Okay, it's going to open up an RDP file for me. And if we connect, just enter our credentials. And hit OK. We can see that that takes us into our virtual machine. Okay, so we just wait for that to connect and prove that the scripts have worked. And we can see we're now authenticated into our new 2016 machine. Okay, so I'm not going to do too much with this now. I'm just going to come out of it. We can see we're connecting. What I do want to do is come back over to here, so all items, and then under my automation account, under my Runbooks, we can see that that's successfully working, and we're going to go ahead and take that out of draft and publish as a working script. Okay, so with that done, we now have a published script. So what I want to do is I now want to change focus and build two more scripts, one that starts the virtual machines, one that shuts the virtual machines, and what we'll do is we'll put those onto a schedule. So let's go back into our PowerShell, and the first one was fine, so we've now got two additional scripts which you would have downloaded from Cloud and Proud. Again, what you'll need to do is you'll need to change the subscription name, and you're going to need to change the service name, but everything else should be fine. So we've got two simple workflows, one that starts the DevNet VMs. Okay, so it's going to go in, it's going to take our credential, it's then going to select the right subscription, and it's going to start DevNet Server 1 and DevNet Server 2. We have a stop DevNet VMs workflow, which again is going to connect up to our subscription, our services, and then shut down DevNet Server 1 and shut down DevNet Server 2. Now you might be wondering what this switch at the end false is for. Now bear in mind what we talked about in session 2. When we create a cloud service, it's going to have a VIP, and that VIP is going to be volatile, meaning once all the resources inside that cloud shut down, the VIP can be released. Now if I don't put the false in there, the script will fail because it doesn't want to lose the IP address. By putting false in there, what we're effectively saying is override the warning and shut down anyway. Okay, so once you've changed the subscription name and the cloud service, both of these should be good to go. So let's just close those down, and what we'll do is we're going to import the runbooks. So we're going to import the start the DevNet VMs, and we'll just wait for that one to come in, and we're going to import the stop the DevNet VMs. Okay, so we'll just bring that into. Okay, and we can see they're both in there. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick refresh. And once that's refreshed, what we'll do is we'll go ahead, we'll publish those, and we'll test. Okay, so we can see they're both now in there. They're both to be published. So let's go into our stop DevNet VMs. Okay, let's come across to author. At the moment we can see it's in draft. Now I'm going to be fairly confident with this and think it's going to work. I can't foresee any problems. So I'm just going to go ahead and publish and say yes. Obviously in a production environment you test. But let's just go ahead and get those published. So I'm going to do this for both. Now the reason I'm publishing these is once that's done, what I can actually do is I can set up some schedules. So if I go back to my stop DevNet VMs and come across to schedule, then what I can do is I can create a new schedule to stop these VMs. Okay, so I can link to a new schedule, and I'm going to call this stop DevNet VMs. Okay, and from there, if I say next, I can stop this daily. I can choose the start time, and I can choose how often I want that to occur. Okay, so a very simple script. I'm not going to do that because it'll take too long for the video, but you can see you can go in and it's just setting up a scheduled task. So we can do it daily, hourly, or at one time, specify the date and time we want to do it, and how many times you want that to occur. What I do want to do though is I just want to test that the scripts work. So I'm actually going to come back, and from the dashboard, from author, I'm just going to go ahead and under publish I'm going to hit start. Okay, so what this should do, are you sure you want to start the Runbook? this should go ahead and shut down those two virtual machines. So let's pause the video and we'll come back in a minute and see if that's the case. And we're back. And we can see, guys, look, DevNet Server 1, DevNet Server 2 are now both stopped. Cloud 1, Cloud 2 are now also stopped. Okay, so the script has worked. Now, in order to save time, I'm not going to bother running the startup script, but I encourage you all to try this and make sure that you're happy with the process. Okay. On a side note, moving forward, you may start to look at things like Resource Manager and some of the new JSON templates that you can download and publish into the new portal. I will cover this in future videos. The reason I've done it this way is to make sure that it aligns with the current exam objectives. Okay, so we'll pin that one down as to be done in the future. Okay, so we're pretty much at the end of our session now, but before I wrap up, what I do want to do is make sure that we're all in a position where we can clean down our environment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into our new portal, and this really highlights the beauty of using resource groups. Now, all through this series, we've been building up using resource groups, either creating them manually or having them automatically created when we created services in the existing portal. So if I just go ahead and hit G and R, it's going to bring up my resource groups. And again, think about what we said. A resource group is a container for all of the services inside it. So we've got one for VM, one for storage. You can see we've got ones in there for network and database and so on. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and start deleting these resources. And the beauty of this is if I click on the resource group and hit delete, there we can see this one's got a cloud service and a virtual machine. But if I delete the resource group, I take a copy of the name and paste that in here. Once that's got a tick in there, it will allow me to delete, and all of those resources will be removed from my Azure subscription, and obviously it won't cost me any more money. Okay, so I'm not going to go through and do them all on the video, but you now know how it's done, and I encourage you to do that in order to save your subscription money. In today's session, we began by building a remote app solution. Now, we used this so we could have a front end to an Azure SQL database that we'd created in a previous session. From there, we then investigated automation scripts, and we used these scripts to build multiple servers into our development virtual network. From there, we created additional scripts that we could tie into a schedule that would start and stop these virtual machines at specific times of the day. I want to thank you all for taking the time to go through these sessions. I really hope it helps with your exam prep and your future designs. I look forward to working with you in the future and wish you the best success.